Hello. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Shrinking live stream. We should be live and we should be streaming. Ah, ads playing. Oh, and yeah, I was mostly ready. And it looks like it's working. It's live. So we are good to go. And if you're watching in the future, this was live. I swear. I swear to God or whatever. You know what I mean? Um, and if you're watching currently, I guess you don't really need me to promise that. You know what I mean? So, thanks for joining. You might have noticed I made a YouTube video. So, what's the deal with these YouTubers? They come out with a video and then they're like, now I have to do a live stream to celebrate. You know what I mean? There's like sort of there's a thing going around where everyone feels like they have to do a live stream afterwards. So, but for me, it's different. You know what I mean? For me, it's totally different. And I do actually have to do a live stream afterwards. But no, I think in the process of making a video, it's most people probably feel like there's so much that ends up on the cutting room floor. You know what I mean? And in my case, I have like a 10-page Google Doc where I have a bunch of notes that I'm going to be sharing, and not just reading, but you know what I mean, like jumping off of, touching on. And I just had to do, I had to do this. I've been wanting to do this for the last couple of weeks since the video dropped, but then I was like, I need to wait because I don't think I have that many people in my audience who know this show, frankly. So this might just be mostly for me and for future Shrinking viewers who come across this live stream, which will be a video by the time they see it. But is it technically? Yeah, it's still a live stream, but you'll be coming across it in a different form. Thanks for joining. Thanks to the people who are coming and hanging out. It looks like we got 8 viewers. Is that 800? Is that 800? No, it says 8 viewers. Sorry, I haven't live streamed in a while. I do podcasts. That's sort of my normal thing now that I'm not making videos so often. Most YouTubers try to graduate to podcasts, so I was able to do that. I got the Verbal Journal pod. I'll throw a link somewhere. But this is different, and I needed to do this because I didn't need to do this. I'm not going to come up with a reason. Anyways, welcome. I'm going to have an adult beverage. You don't have to. You do not have to drink alcohol. I'm just going to I'm going to responsibly drink some alcohol. But you don't have to. So don't feel like you have to just because I'm doing it. Yeah. You can. I'm not saying you can't, but you don't have to. Okay, so. How is everyone doing? Please file in and say hello to each other. You know what I mean? Be nice to each other in the chat. I guess I thought maybe I'd just look at the comments first. I feel like that was a good place to start. We used to do that with the Better Call Saul videos, Breaking Bad video. I thought I would look at the comments. Maybe there's some stuff worth talking about first. I guess I'm really happy with how this went. I'm really happy to have put out a new video essay that I put a lot of work into it. It was nice to put this work into it, and it's nice to have a product like this that I know I'm happy with, and it will be on the internet for quite a while. Top accomplishment is that I didn't trip the copyright censors, so I was able to not have to it's not only YouTube will take the money that the video generates, in this case it's very little money, but they'll also add their own ads usually when you trip the copyright censors, so that's a real pain. That only happened on one of my Better Call Saul videos, part 3. And it was quite annoying because it was after I had already had it uploaded and on private for a few days. And then once I published it, they decided to, actually, your clip of 10 seconds of this clip was 1 second too long. So far so good. I know how to edit for YouTube. I put a lot of work. I'll start by just explaining this before we go into the comments. Just the editing side of it. If you edit and you make videos, you probably can tell what I'm doing. Also, if you're familiar with the show, you can potentially, you can probably tell quite well if you're looking really closely. But it's interesting because, when I say I'm showing a scene, right? And there's like one thing from the scene that I want to play the audio of. Let's say
his coworkers.
Let's say this, right? So I'm about to play one audio clip from the show, or from the scene, right? And I have to know kind of which scene I'm doing, right? So it's Alice and Paul on the bench, and I need her saying, "Who gives a heck?" You know what I mean? I gotta censor it for YouTube. I didn't censor things, but you got to be a little careful. So, but then in the process, then in the lead up to that clip. Well, actually,
it's because Paul has had a conversation with his client, Alice, his coworker.
This shot I'm showing, it can't be the part that's actually directly before the quote I'm about to play, because then YouTube will say you just played a 20-second clip. So you're like taking a part from the end of the scene or from much earlier in the scene, or you know what I mean? And you're finding a way to cut around the part you need to use. But then that obviously introduces a lot of new challenges because you still need the cuts to look fairly okay. So you're finding times where you're cutting in between shots from completely varied parts in a scene is basically the easiest way to summarize what I'm trying to say.
His daughter, who he had this interaction with.
I just don't believe Sean should be living at your house.
Who gives a shit?
Then seemingly to
So yeah, this shot that it just cut to, I think, was a different reaction maybe.
By Alice, Paul stopped.
You know what I mean? I had to cut earlier. First you get his natural reaction.
Who gives a shit?
Then
that's his that was kind of a bad cut, shrinking, actually. I talked about the editing at the end of the video, and I was like, I tried to make it clear you can't judge based on my editing because you don't really know where I cut and when the video cut, but I'm telling you that was their cut, and that's
interaction with.
I just don't believe Sean should be living at your house.
Who gives a shit?
Then
like he's already looking away. Anyways, whatever. Okay, okay, so what else? Should I look at the comments while maybe some people filter in? Let's look at the comments. So, Simply Snaps, absolutely dominating the comment section. Thank you, Snaps. You're killing it. And I hope that I helped you learn. I mean, I'm doing my best. This is going to be a long-term thing. You know what I mean? I called the channel What's Therapy in an aspirational sense. So one day we will understand what therapy is, But thank you, Snaps. And y'all check out Snaps. She makes amazing videos. And if you're into like Legend of Zelda, I don't know if there's a better video essayist, but she's extremely good. So y'all should check out her work. Okay. And then people, commiserating. Yeah, he won't tell us what therapy is, and so on. One day I will watch The Sopranos, if like I fall on hard times financially or something, and I need, a video that I know people will watch. I guess I'm also somewhat interested, but like I'm not that interested just because like I don't need to, you know what I mean? There's only so many hours in a day, and so okay, okay, but I know there's a lot that would be worthwhile. So the warm up NBA, that's a cool name. This is funny. I've heard this person say Jimmy more than I've heard anyone else say any word. I'm a psych student looking to go into research, and watching the show genuinely made me think, well, maybe I could go into practicing therapy because there's no way I could be as bad as this guy. Yeah. Well, you're going into research. Oh, you're not sure though. Maybe you're going to go into clinical. Yeah. I mean, it's not like rocket science being a therapist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's challenging. There's a lot of challenges that are very nuanced and subtle, but if you have the ability to like follow directions and you have any sense of like ethics, you won't fall into the same issues that this guy falls into, Jimmy, on this show. Calling I unfortunately, people probably read this comment and think I called HBO or called Apple the HBO of mid-TV. I agreed with it, but it wasn't my original thought. That was from the New York Times or whatever article that I cite at the end. There's always an argument to be made for that kind of show, but I think we audiences need to be able to make that distinction. Yeah, and I tried to make sure I was not like being that much of a jerk about shrinking. Because, like, obviously, despite all my criticisms, it's just a show, and it's not something to, like, get up in arms about. Though there's a few things I have to comment on. Okay. Just kind of skimming a little bit. As someone who was also ruined by the perfection of Better Call Saul, I just want to say that I absolutely love how you arbitrarily ended up analyzing this show specifically in juxtaposition to Better Call Saul, despite things being unrelated. Yeah. So part of that was to be funny. Part of it was me just like thinking about Better Call Saul a lot. And part of it was just like a logical way to try to have some sort of continuity on the channel. So welcome back. I would listen to you commentate paint drying. Thank you. I have plans to do that one day. So, thank you so much. Oh, feel free to steal that idea. Okay, maybe that's where I got the idea. Hannibal, interesting. Cinema there. Oh, thank you. I haven't seen the show based on this video. So it seems similar to Good Will Hunting. Yeah, I don't remember the exact situation with the therapist in Good Will Hunting, but I'm sure it was, pretty, laid back or different. Thanks for all the comments, y'all. Someone gave me money in a comment. I will do a video on price eventually. I did look back at my notes and I don't have that many notes. You know what I mean? I had 5 things to say about price. So, but one day. And then on Cinema, I do love On Cinema, as I told them, and I sent a verbal journal link. That's a freebie. You know what I mean? That's usually just for the channel supporters on Patreon and memberships. I realized the link I sent, I don't really talk about On Cinema that much. I talk about it, but I don't really analyze it. I'm just talking about it in a very generic sense. All right, and then some more awesome comments. Super nice people. Thank you, everyone who's I really appreciate people who are. Thank you for liking. I appreciate you appreciating me. Oh, Nathan Fielder commented. Okay, cool. Lots of nice things, and this person, I'm sorry. They said I didn't realize there were 3 episodes left until I saw this, so that they didn't see. So, well, you know what I mean? So, sometimes, sometimes you take the bad choice road and you watch a video you shouldn't. So, all right, lots more really cool suggestions. Some people appreciating some of my comments. This was meant as a joke. I hope you'll forgive me for doing such a long video. I can't help it. I'd like to do shorter, you know what I mean? I was not planning on doing a 2-hour video the whole time. It just spirals out of control, and it's this is a nice comment. Thank you so much. Cool. So luckily we didn't get too many comments, so we can move on from this segment, I'm sorry. Cool. Okay, so very nice. Are there more? Wow. Okay, y'all commented a little bit too much on this one, I gotta be honest. Gabby had every right to not want to live with her mom, but the way her supervisor basically bullied her into that decision on short notice. I know, they're all so enmeshed with each other. While her mom was already moved, it seems to be unhealthy, professionally speaking, in terms of relationship between Gabby and her supervisor. Beyond that, you can't get into the process of moving your mom in, and then when you're 90% of the way done, change your mind. That last part I don't agree with. It's obviously not the right way to do things. It's much better to not move your mom in 90%. Well, I just say random percent. But it is better than making the wrong decision, and at the end of the day, you do have the right to say no at any point. But yeah. Cool. So nice comments. Thank you, everyone. I did take all the recommendations into account. Holy mother of based political opinions. I'll take it. Cool. Okay, so that's great, and we are living it up here. How's everyone feeling? I didn't see anyone saying hi to each other in the chat. You know what I mean? Are you all mad at each other or something? Or why are you not talking to each other? It's not just about me. Say hi to each other. Did you like my... I mean, really, the Lewis thing is crazy, right? Like, I really couldn't believe the Lewis thing. We'll talk more about that.
Account and everything. I told her I was spending the night at Lewis's. Lewis.
So I will always try to cut around the titles being on the screen, and it will be a top priority, but I just couldn't here, and I that was too funny to have him go Lewis. So, cool. So great, and it was gonna be like a nice. I could pull an image up. Okay, so what else? So yeah, I tried to do some research too and like make it interesting there. Okay, so let's get into the doc, right? Why do I have more things to say? Why could I just not, be done? Do I have a problem? You know what I mean? I think people are kind of asking themselves these types of questions, and I'd like to answer. I'd like to respond to the accusations. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, I'm pretty sure they recast Lewis. So similar to we were talking in Better Call Saul videos, in Breaking Bad video, obviously they recast Holly. Still mad about that. But I'm pretty sure they recast Lewis, right? Because they didn't know it was gonna be. They didn't know Lewis was gonna be a character. They didn't know Brett Goldstein was gonna be Lewis. And then you see. Where's the Lewis? I left myself a timestamp here.
Into likability. It'll be more fun if we make him unlikable.
I totally agree. I love that
I totally agree. This guy.
he's complex, he's likable and unlikable. And people will see him as a good guy, not just because
Bro, did I give myself the wrong timestamp?
of Siegel's likable personality infusing the character, but also
Yeah,
because
I totally
Jimmy has
Oh, here we go. No, I didn't hear it.
suffered a
Slightly
terrible tragedy of losing Tia, so there's a lot of forgiveness we're willing to offer him. And
wrong. I sound so funny.
the show is about forgiveness
Oh,
anyway.
really?
It's about
here we go,
forgiveness
here we
in a
go.
lot of ways, which
Is that Brett Goldstein?
we will
It's so triggering to see, please. So triggering.
show is about forgiveness anyway. It's about forgiveness
But they're not ICE. You can tell because they are in uniform and have their faces.
in a lot of ways, which
Yeah. And there's presumably a crime that's been committed. But yeah, I don't think that's Brett Goldstein.
we will talk about.
So
About forgiveness
pretty upset that they recast Lewis.
anyway. It's about forgiveness in a lot of ways.
Is that Brett Goldstein? It certainly looks enough like Brett Goldstein, but like, did they just choose a random guy? I feel like the nose is different. I'm not looking at the chat. Is everyone saying you're so right? Yeah. Wow. Look at that. Cool. So I'm right about that. Okay. Anyway, first of all, let me just ask the chat, did any of you see this show? I mean, I know people in the future who are watching this are much more likely to have seen the show, and I that's why I'm doing this. Plus, also, I couldn't help myself. But do any of y'all know this show? Or chime in, let me know. Okay. Just like a general theory. Okay, so the show's made by Jason Segel, Brett Goldstein, and what's the other guy's name? Bill Lawrence. So I'm just going to give you sort of my riffing here, just like my theory or my thoughts. Jason Segel is amazing. I think he seems like a really good guy. He's extremely funny. I love him from Freaks and Geeks. If you don't know Freaks and Geeks, you got to watch that show. It's classic. Yeah, I'm not really recommending Shrinking, frankly. I definitely wouldn't buy Apple TV to watch Shrinking. Anyway, so Segel, great. I think Segel is great. Let me go next to Brett Goldstein. Brett Goldstein, I get a bad vibe. I think he's probably a nice guy, but like I just get an iffy vibe from some of the interviews I saw. I'm open to changing my mind. I don't think he's a bad person. I just get a strange vibe. Is it the turtleneck? Is it the way he, shaves like he looks like The Weeknd and so on? No, it's not. It's for more legitimate reasons. You know what I mean? But I think he's probably a funny guy, and he definitely brings a good energy to the show. I think I would like it more if it was either them two or Jason Segel. So lastly, Bill Lawrence. I don't, Scrubs is a classic. Scrubs is an extremely good show. I watched it as a kid. It's very good. I don't have any interest in watching stuff like that though anymore. It's too sappy. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I think there's a valid place for that, and it's good for people who enjoy it. Me personally, I'm not interested in watching like a sappy thing where every episode is sappy. I don't know a better word to use. Sentimental in like a very like cheap and forced way, where every episode wraps up with this like tearful music and whatnot. So I guess what I'm saying is it's a strange combination of people, and like it probably would be way worse without any of the three for sure. I think that's fair to say. Actually, I think it would be way worse. And they were working on it for like 10 years. It's a long history of the show. It was like Brett Goldstein had his version, Bill Lawrence had his version. They brought in Jason Segel. I mean, it would not work without Jason Segel, but it also wouldn't really I don't know. It's a very strange combination to have Bill Lawrence. I don't know him that well. Everything I'm saying now is sort of an assumption. Like, I'm not really that well versed in like media. I'm like sort of just like a guy who's a therapist who analyzes and overthinks too much. I'm not like an IMDb like in a person. So all that being said, that's just my vibe check. Basically on the three. So it's pretty meaningless. I don't blame you if you're like, that wasn't super helpful. You know what I mean? But again, it's not easy to keep, what do we have? 2,000 viewers right now? 10,000? 11? We have 11. 11. Oh yeah. We're going to get to talking about the music. We are going to get to talking about the music. Yeah. So, by the way, and I'm just going to like sort of keep clicking around so we have different things to look at. I love that they had Alex Vesia. I do watch the Dodgers, I got to be honest. So with the Paul thing, I was always saying like, oh, is Paul, their supervisor? Like they never really say, like they do say that he's their supervisor. It's just confusing that they would have a supervisor. If you didn't really, I was clear enough, but the theme song is good of the show, by the way. That's like the, what's his name? The Death Cab for Cutie guy wrote the theme song, actually. Ben Gibbard or something, I think. But yeah, it's weird that they work there. I mean, if you're a licensed therapist, you wouldn't have a supervisor. You still do consultation. You do what's called peer consultation. Peer consultation. You can meet with someone, you can meet with multiple people, you know what I mean? You do consultation, but like, again, it's a little weird that they work with a supervisor when they're licensed therapists. It's a little, it's unusual. But yeah, he does call Paul his mentor. Jimmy calls Paul his mentor. So in season 1, episode 9, his boss and mentor. I'm sorry, he calls him his boss and mentor. So that clears that up for everyone who was like, "Can you please clarify that?" Okay. To the music. I don't want to be a jerk. It's not like the music is. It's not like the songs are bad. I think the songs are great. I think pop music. I think chill, radio-friendly music is great. I'm not here to hate on it. I literally don't care at all. But it totally shapes the show. I don't know that I have notes on this or that I mentioned it in the video. There are definitely times where the music is actually incongruous. And it's sappy and you're like not fully at the sappy part yet. And you're like, why is it already sappy? So I do think Bill Lawrence was in charge of the music. I don't remember. I know they hired other people for the music, but I feel like it was very Scrubs-esque. I don't know that I really appreciated the music. It felt like it cheapened a lot of things. You know, I'm not, when I say sappy, I'm obviously not trying to say that there's something wrong with being like sentimental, but there's like a cheapness of having this like happy, positive music over someone's like serious stress. The one time I liked the music was when the season 2 episode 1 when he visits Grace in prison. It's a very Better Call Saul-esque song. I don't have the audio of it, but when he visits Grace in prison, I was almost going to talk about it in the video, but I was like, you know, but yeah, it's like this very like funk sort of like, or like almost like a grimy, no, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, it sounds like it could be in on like some sort of like not Americana, but some sort of like Better Call Saul-ish song. I don't know. There's our guy. No one's done it better. I still get people who comment on my Breaking Bad video and my Better Call Saul videos and incorrectly state that Better Call Saul is not the best show on television. Can you believe that? It's bizarre. But, you know, there are people who believe in a flat earth. You know what I mean? So that it's like on the same level, I would say. If you're going to deny your senses like that, you know what I mean? You can do that. But there's also music in the show where like it's diegetic, which is a word someone taught me in a comment previously because I didn't know the word in my Breaking Bad video, which is when the people in the show, the characters, hear the music. The show opens with diegetic music where he is, having his like bender, and it's like the song by The Who or something. I don't remember if it's by The Who or, and he's like, I feel like he does that in that movie, I Love You Man, too. Like, I feel like Jason Segel's like, yo, can we bring in some of my like Who love or something? I might have the wrong band, you know what I mean? But don't worry about it. Okay, do you want to get into some drama? Do we want the drama? I mean, I know that's what brings in the views here on the tube, right? We want the drama more than anything, right? Am I right, chat? Do we want drama? Are you frothing at the mouth for drama right now? Well, how about problematic age gaps? So where do I mention it on the show? So the thing about Alice and Sean, you know what? It'd be good if I remembered everything. Oh, you know, it's got to be here. The thing about age gaps is that they could be problematic. And they could also be illegal. Does anyone remember? Does anyone have a timestamp for when I mentioned their age gap? I guess that would be the thing I would know, right? Having made the video. I go, and then it's, related to blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to imagine myself making the video. When would I have talked about their ages? This is probably like, one of the downsides of watching a live stream is you have this type of stuff where I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like... Anyways, he's 22 and she's 17. So that seems more than problematic. Like Bill Belichick. I just talked about that on the podcast, on the most recent Verbal Journal episode for channel supporters and Patreon members. Y'all, if you have some money to spare, you should join my cult. I'm sorry, my Patreon. What did I say? What did I say? My Patreon. Anyways, yeah, I talked about Bill Belichick 73 is his romantic partner's 24, and there's some questions about whether she should be involved in the interviews he's doing. Apparently, she's not so happy to have the relationship talked about for some reason. But I defended him. I said, hey, if you're extremely immature and you have very poor moral and emotional development, then and you are extremely underdeveloped, I think I can understand a 50-year age gap, of course. Anyways, I don't, you know what I mean? I can't find the exact point where I pulled it up. It would be really nice to see it on screen right now, but we're just going to look at a picture of this instead. Sean's 22 and Alice is 17. And I wasn't the only one that found that a little bit illegal. Someone on Reddit said, why is no one talking about the at best questionable, at worst illegal, inappropriate relationship between Sean and Alice? So I don't think a crime was necessarily committed. I didn't do like a deep dive into the legalities of consent laws in California, but I do think obviously it's not legal for them to hook up. It's totally illegal, and the show doesn't have Sean like hitting on Alice, I guess. I think he behaves very inappropriately by being like, he sits very close to her at a few points, and it's like, okay, like I don't love that, but I don't think he commits a crime. Oh, here.
In their beautiful home in Pasadena. In an arrangement, you might have a hard time.
Yeah, so he's like sitting a little close.
Always
To,
a month
you know what I mean?
to
like,
live in their
if you're 22
home in
and
Pasadena. In an arrangement,
you're hanging out with a 17-year-old, you just like sit in different chairs. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a challenge. You just sit in different chairs. So again, I don't think that's criminal. It's just that the show doesn't really acknowledge. So the show does acknowledge it a little, but it's like a little bit too little too late, I would say. The age of consent is 18 in California. I looked it up when I was working on this video. So she is not 18. They're obviously not having sex, as I said. It's just like uncomfortable that it seems like she obviously is attracted to him and so on. And, she's clearly like flirting with him and like,
known to have his magic therapy touch.
in this scene, she's clearly flirting with him, and Sean, okay, like, doesn't, not clear enough about it, but he's not like breaking the law, I guess. Obviously his therapist should never have invited him to come live with him, and that's a big problem. But let me, so what do I have to say about this? So, I mean, a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old is gross. Just suffice it to say, it's gross, but they don't hook up and so on, but it's worth saying that's gross. Someone's like done with college and the other person hasn't gone to college. So it's like basically similar to a 73-year-old Bill Belichick with his 24-year-old girlfriend. Just totally different life stages and so on. Okay, so just a little bit more about that though. I'm going to be reading a little bit here. I wrote like a paragraph. Why did I write so much here in the Google Doc? In season 1, episode 4, when Liz and Gabby are drinking, so that is, they're like out on the porch and they're drinking. I think it's right at the end of like this episode where Alice tells him that she had sex and so on, and he acts comical and blah, blah, blah. Here we go. When Liz and Gabby are drinking, they talk in this jokey way with Jimmy about Sean and Alice being at risk of hooking up. And it's just played for laughs, and no one says that it would be... Like, they're talking about it as, that's so uncomfortable for Jimmy as a father and so on. Hard to think about his daughter hooking up with someone. But there's not any really discussion about how it would be profoundly unethical for Jimmy's 17-year-old daughter and his 22-year-old client, let me remind you, to hook up. And I it's illegal in California, right? And like no one really mentions that. It's just like played as a joke. And then the next episode starts the next morning, and Jimmy has seen that Alice like looked in on Sean sleeping and was like, "You're so beautiful," and Jimmy happened to be sleeping in the pool house too with his client. I never even thought about that. Anyways, so yeah, the next episode starts and Jimmy tells Liz and Gabby, "Oh, you were right about the attraction Alice had for Sean." And no one still says, that would be inappropriate. I hope they don't act on that and so on. We should make that clear to Alice that it's inappropriate, and Sean. And then in season 1, episode 6, so the next episode after that, at Brian's engagement party, when she goes to kiss Sean, he says, quote, "You're just a kid," which is true. And then the next morning, season 1, episode 7, Alice does this denial thing, which is, I think, very, like, kind of clever. I like that she reacts in that way. I think that's very age appropriate. Where she does, she's like, says to Sean, "Oh, it's cool that you tried to kiss me last night. No problem. I mean, it's a little bit creepy because you're a lot older than me, but it's fine. I'm fine." So she's like, coping with the awkwardness she feels about having made that advancement, but she also knows it's obviously wrong for them to hook up. For multiple reasons. And then Sean agrees to not talk about it. And because he understands, I guess she's just like processing the mistake of coming on to her father's client, who's her housemate. And then at the end of the scene, there's a weird overdub of Alice saying, "Well, I'm going to pretend mine never happened," about bad decisions. But in the way of this show, it seems like it's sort of treated as wrong because it didn't work, not wrong for like other reasons. And Liz, later in the episode, Sean opens up to Liz about Alice trying to kiss him and now being mad at him. And Liz is like, no, she's mad because she's scared of being abandoned. No mention of like, obviously you're not going to hook up with her, right? Liz doesn't say, obviously you're not going to hook up with your therapist's 17-year-old daughter, right? Like there's not that kind of check because Liz and Sean are tight, right? They're all so tight. Jimmy's neighbor is so tight with his client. You know what I mean? And then finally, Gabby and Alice talk about it directly. And Gabby says, "At the end of the day, ma'am, you're only 17. And Alice says, "Ma'am, I'm only 18 and he's only 22. How old was the oldest guy you were ever with?" And Gabby says that she was 19 with a 50-year-old, which is very creepy and wrong, but not technically illegal. And creepy and wrong for the 50-year-old, obviously. I don't blame a 19-year-old like I blame the 50-year-old. It's a different sort of situation, but still wrong and technically not illegal. But Gabby goes on to sympathize and say it'll blow over with Sean and so on. And then in the next episode, season 1, episode 8, Brian, Jimmy, and Paul go to get, oh my God, they go to get Alice from a USC guy's dorm that she's hanging with. And Brian tells the guy, she's underage, right? And the guy says, "You said you were 19 to Alice." So the show understands that this could be an issue, but much more so when it's with like a 20-year-something-year-old college student rather than the 22-year-old client of Jimmy's. So there's just these ways that the show kind of blocks out awareness of like the weight of what's going on. All this could have been resolved by like, and that conversation with Gabby, they just move on. It could all be like, it could be resolved fairly easily. Someone just needs to take it seriously. But the Gabby saying, "Oh, ma'am, you're 17," just ends up being played for laughs about Gabby's own sort of experiences. But so on a similar sort of subject, I'm gonna annoy some young gentlemen with this comment, but I'm just going to say it. What's a good shot to pull up for this? It's a little bit... Hold on. it's a little bit male gazy. Did anyone else feel like this show was a little bit male gazy? I mean, there were just a few points where I'm like, you know, and okay, they show, you know, it's like, there were a few points where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I needed to see that amount of leg or that amount of cleavage, but I'm not against it. It just seemed like it was a show made by men. I don't need to pull up a shot of cleavage to prove my point, but like, you know, I'm just trying to say like, I don't need to do that. There were a few points where I found the show a little bit male gazy, and like some shots of Alice that I was like, you know, I don't know if I needed to see like her legs to that degree, frankly. So, you know, and just like, okay, whatever, this shot, I'm sure it's necessary and so on, but you know, I'm not trying to be a Puritan. You know, sex is cool, sex is good, bodies are good, being turned on is dope, you know what I mean? That's freaking great. I just found a few points in the show where I was like, okay, were there women involved in the cinematography here? But, you know, or non-men at all, frankly, but okay, you know, whatever. I'm not going to pull up shots of cleavage to prove my point. I looked for long enough. It's not the cleavage. It's mostly like, it's not just cleavage. Because I also think for Grace's character, it goes along. I understand that she's very, you know, at the point where she's with Donnie, she's very like unsure of herself, and she's like performing a certain version of herself for her husband. And so I actually think a lot of it makes sense with her. It's more just like a general theme throughout the show. But yeah. So anyways, I hate sex. Oh no, I'm sorry. So in one of the interviews, should I pull it up? I have it right here. I might as well pull it up, you know. So they got Bill Lawrence in the studio for this one. I didn't feature him much, I don't think. I might have had a shot of this interview, I think, but let's see. It's 15:30. I promised we would be watching videos and not just have me talking the whole time, right? I think when I talked about this originally. Let's check it out. I see a comment I want to respond to. Oh, I'll get to it after.
The discussion was, are people really that savvy as TV viewers yet? Because, you know, the problem in comedy rooms is, I did it for my boys the other night. You can be watching TV. We were watching Big Bang Theory, which they love, so I'm not disparaging it. And they paused on a joke setup, and I said the punchline. You know?
That's not what I was trying to show. But I think it's about to happen.
And they're like, you saw this one. I'm like, nah, man, I just been doing this for 9,000 years. You know what I mean? And so we're hoping that even subconsciously, people expect things to be neat and tidy, and then they get gut punched a little bit. So yes.
Yeah. Things could be less neat and tidy.
It was with tremendous intent, you know, because also, you know, if you have one of the obligations we have for all these therapists, they said, if you're going to have this wish fulfillment story for us of a therapist that says what he really thinks people should do, you know, and he's just going to tell them and push them into it, there's got to be consequences for it.
I was watching this when I was like almost done with making the video, and I'm like, bro, that's such a good point. But like, you didn't do that. Like, the consequences, Grace gets out of prison so quick. Like, that is true what he just said, but like, really? Did you do that? Like, what is consequences when they just get overrode? Like,
absolutely. And I'll say that any series that can get a carpool karaoke out of Harrison Ford is gonna be the best. And I just love that.
Okay. I mean, I don't know this channel, but it's cool that they got Bill Lawrence for an interview. Damn, I should be getting people for interviews. Why am I not doing that? If y'all know anyone famous, can you tell them? You know what I mean? But no, I actually do want to be reaching out to people for more. I've done some interviews on this channel. You can check out live streams and stuff. But yeah, there was one other thing I think.
Watch that make me laugh. So I mean,
Thank you so much for being so kind, man. And for real, anytime, doesn't have to be about my stuff. If you're doing an article on TV or
Bill, if you want to have an interview where the person is like a little bit less kind, I could do that. Oh, you know what? Here's what I was trying to show. So they consulted with therapists, right? That's something I've seen many times, right?
and she looks at him and smiles in slow motion, and he smiles back, that everybody in a good way is going to think, oh, the show ended like the show I've seen like this 9,000 times. And then if you really embrace, there's consequences to your behavior, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back, then we pull the rug out and something drastically, kind of going the other way happens. It's very cool that you noticed that, because the discussion was, are people really that savvy as TV?
Hold on. There's just one point I wanted to show here about. So they consulted with therapists, but like, did they consult? Like, what types of
End
therapists?
of the episode, the scene at the soccer game, when each episode just kind of ends so authentic.
First, I gotta give you props on not being what we argued about this in the writers' room forever. Yeah, Scott, make sure we get a little more time, because I'm getting way into this. Because, by the way, people usually ask the same questions. So this is a cool question, because in the writers' room, we wanted to do a trick. And we're like, our TV audience is so savvy now that if we play a song and have him show up at his daughter's game, and she looks at him and smiles and think, oh, the show ended like the show embrace.
I don't know. Why do I not take better notes for myself? You know what I mean?
So to kind of hopefully destigmatize and humanize that profession.
Hold on.
Character like Lorraine Bracco helps you know Tony Soprano,
Right.
And
I don't understand that reference.
and at this age, we know a lot of shrinks, and they're as messed up and as screwy as anybody,
For sure. And I love the idea of humanizing therapists like myself.
And so to kind of hopefully destigmatize and humanize that profession, and and really show what a community of people can do if you embrace it, maybe by helping other people.
Oh my God. Why does it just say hashtag Brett Goldstein? I mean, you don't hashtag Jason Segel or the guy you're... Oh, is this an interview with multiple... Bro, you got everyone? Who is this? Well done, Joe Blow Celebrity Access. You really got access to celebrities.
Can help myself. That's kind of how it came into place. We didn't know if it would work. We got a lot of shrink advisors that made sure that we weren't being inauthentic. One of them, you got to watch this. I'm talking too much, so I'll give you more time. Sorry. You got to watch this documentary on Netflix called Stutz.
Yeah.
Right. So I find myself wondering, was Phil Stutz the main person they consulted with? Phil Stutz, I obviously mentioned in my video. He's a Hollywood psychiatrist or psychotherapist who is famous for probably a few reasons, but especially because his client Jonah Hill made a Netflix movie about him. And I definitely had that at about this point. Okay. And so, so Paul is based on Phil Stutz. Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. People should actually subscribe to my Patreon. And YouTube memberships. Wow. I offer YouTube memberships. It's pretty cool. So yeah, Phil Stutz, I'm sure he's a nice guy. It's okay for people to have, unconventional therapeutic approaches and so on. I just think, you gotta, when you're getting sort of therapist take on things, you should maybe get a few different types, more conservative, sort of like rules-based therapists. I don't mean conservative politically, though there are conservative therapists, unfortunately. So I just think, it's just kind of shocking that they were like, well, we got to make sure that the people experience consequences. Like, what show are you watching? They do experience consequences, and then the consequences get swept up super well. I did not watch the Netflix movie about Jonah Hill and his therapist. it didn't look interesting to me at all. It's, good. Destigmatize mental health. Great. It's 2025. I mean, it's been destigmatized. Like, destigmatizing mental health does not justify making a documentary about your therapist. Like, don't do that. And also, like, if it didn't talk about Jonah Hill's, like, weird situation with his ex where he was, like, manipulating her with the concept of boundaries, like, I don't want to watch it. Because I imagine, and this is totally speculation, but my vibe of Phil Stutz and this stuff that comes across is that he's not the type of therapist to be like, Jonah, I'm not sure if you're using the concept of boundaries accurately and you're back and forth with your partner. It seems like you might be trying to control what she does. You met her on Instagram. Why are you telling her what she can post on Instagram? That's my memory of that whole thing. I did a whole podcast. Actually, there was a public podcast episode about that. Should I link my podcast in the chat? All right, you can stop begging me. Everyone chill out. I'll link my podcast in the chat. So you can talk about something else. You know what I mean? Check out my pod. I'll spell it in a funny way so people get kind of hyped. Check. How do I spell Czech? Like Czech Republic. Check out my podcast. Pin message. This is going to be a lot of chatting going on. Wanted to respond to a comment. The person said, there was a weird scene where Abby, or Gabby, it's Gabby, forced Jason Segel's character, which is Jimmy, but I respect where you're coming from because it takes me forever to learn people's names on shows. Forces him to remove his pants to expose his underwear because she's like, are you wearing your sexy underwear when you came over here? Are you trying to sleep with me or not? And it's weird that she's forcing him to take his underwear off or like to take his pants to reveal his underwear. Like, for sure, it's weird. It's played for laughs, obviously, so it's like a little bit more understandable. It's not the most clearly played for laughs, but you know they're trying to play it for laughs. I feel like it's almost taken a little bit seriously. But I was more like, I didn't give a fuck about their relationship, Gabby and Jimmy. They made no sense together, and it was super forced. It made no sense, and it was also like made it harder to like both of them. Because it was just like, what are you doing? You're both using each other for these weird reasons. And then, like, I think I have some notes about this later to touch on, but it's super confusing how, like, that ends in a way where I thought, like, Gabby ended it, or she certainly... But then she's all, like, hurt that he used her and wasn't sensitive to that she was developing feelings. But she was explicitly using him because she sees her ex, and she uses Jimmy as safe dick. And then she's mad at him for using her, which is fine. But as the show communicates, we're supposed to take her side and be like, oh, he's using her. It all seems so contrived. I mean, yeah, obviously, like, abuse and assault of men is not always taken seriously enough. But in this case, it's just like, yeah, you could look at it as just another thing that's played for laughs in a slightly confusing way on the show. Okay, little talk about OCD. I mean, I tried to get some facts in there so you could understand, because OCD is so not well understood for something that is so freaking common. Like, if you're listening to this, you definitely know someone who has OCD. Like, almost definitely, like, you definitely know someone who has OCD. It's super common. What did I say? 1% to 2%? It's a lot of people with OCD. It's very common. You should understand what it is. It's not that complicated. At the end of the day, you have some degree of intrusive thoughts or obsessive thoughts, and you... in trying to react to them, you build up these ineffective habits of reacting to them. You build up the intrusive thoughts. You end up taking them too seriously often, and you engage in all sorts of different compulsions to try to neutralize the intrusive thoughts rather than just accepting them, letting them sit, letting them be, understanding the thoughts are not the same as actions. I do honestly recommend getting therapy with someone who is either trained in exposure and response prevention or informed about it, understands OCD in an empirical way, because it's super treatable. It really is. It's something like 70-80% of people see their symptoms go into remission if they do like the proper evidence-based therapy. There is no and compulsions can be they can be physical. Obviously, there's the typical someone washing their hands, which could be for a million different reasons in response to intrusive thoughts. Sometimes there's not a specific intrusive thought. It's sort of just a compulsion called a just right compulsion or something. That I'm just doing it because it feels right. Sometimes it's sort of just an intrusive thought or obsessive thought without an exact compulsion, but usually there's a mental compulsion of avoidance or some sorts of compulsions. Usually some sorts of mental avoidance. I need to not think about that. I need to not think about that, and so on. Guess what your brain does when you do that? It thinks, whoa, that must be a really important thought if I'm trying to fight it off. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be unrealistic. I understand that the show doesn't need to necessarily go into like all the clients' treatment plans and stuff. I don't really get any sense of Wally being someone with OCD. Like I guess, he has that other client, Dan, that like won't sit somewhere where someone else has sat. So like that's sort of like an obsessive thought type of thing. Wally has I forget what her things are. She has like certain things. She like charges her phone to a prime number and so on. So it's like they do, I should say they do enough to like characterize her as someone with OCD. This whole scene is just makes no sense. He's so proud of her for sitting on her own couch. Like I like, what, dude? Why is your face so close to your client's face? I had to add that in post because I realized.
To happen if the boundaries of the professional relationship get blurred by, for instance, starting to...
Yeah, way too close, dude. You're incredible. Could you imagine if your therapist was like, you're incredible. We would all kiss our therapist if they did that. You know what I mean? That's a totally normal response. It's the therapist's fault. Joking. So this is so funny. You make these silly mistakes when you're making a video. Like, I go through all of their arcs.
Trying to get across just how many character development beats out. But this is not It's Always Sunny. He was excited. Relationship with his daughter, also with his best friend, has a relationship with his work friend and late wife's...
I was too lazy to get other clips of their relationships. I just kept showing that clip. Okay, whatever. I don't know. Whatever.
Close friend.
It's fun to be silly with someone you're having sex with. I'm not going to hate on that.
Gabby then breaks up, is very awkward, becomes friends again, learns how to process his grief. And
okay, anyways, out of all these arcs that I do for all the characters on the show, I don't mention Alice.
Building a great relationship with Derek. Brian reconnects with Jimmy, gets married, changes his mind about kids, and then decides to raise a child with his husband.
I just don't even mention Alice.
Relationship with his dad and mom starts.
You know what I mean? So there was a lot going on in the show. There's a lot going on. I didn't even mention Alice and her arc, which is like extensive. I said this in my video, but it's like, it's so unexpected that she terminates with Paul. This is the word we use for it. It's kind of intense. That she ends the therapeutic... Oh, look, who's that? That's me. Oh, did I make this video? That she ends the therapeutic relationship with Paul is so unexpected, and it's the show trying to be like, this wasn't a problematic, unhealthy relationship that her dad's boss had with her for like over a year, where he was like meeting with her at first in secret, and it's quite bizarre, and he was pretty unprofessional about it because she was fine. Do you know how unlikely that would be for a kid or a young adult? I don't know if she's 18 at this time. Like, to terminate like responsibly and be like, and to his face be like, I think I've had enough. You know what I mean? The idea that that's her, like that she's that mature and that it like is meant to reflect like, oh, it was fine. It was fine. The relationship was fine. Okay. Going through theories and questions about shrinking online. Okay, and I didn't link any of them, so what am I supposed to do that? Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Better Call Saul reference I made during the Lewis bit about the idea of family. Oh, the family of the Good Samaritan of Mike inadvertently getting killed in season 2 of Better Call Saul with his plot against Salamanca. So that was in the same episode of Better Call Saul, Nailed, which is the episode of Chuck investigating Jimmy's Mesa Verde sabotage and getting hurt, which I also showed in my video. So Jimmy faces the consequences of his actions, along with Mike in that episode facing the consequences of his actions by finding out that the Good Samaritan was killed. And I say this to say, well, it's interesting. You pick up on those things when you're working on something like this. Oh, they put that in the same episode. But it's two parallel things. Rather than shrinking, we'll have like 4, 5, 6, like so many different parallel things that are trying to like sync up with each other. So anyways, another connection, the deep voice connection. Paul has such a nice deep voice, similar to Mike Ehrmantraut. You know, I love those deep voices. Obviously, you know, all kinds of voices are good. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not just trying to say that deep voices are the best voices. I'm just, you know, saying that maybe, you know, maybe when you think about it, certain voices are pretty good. Okay, does Gabby ever talk to Lewis? Question for the chat. Does Gabby ever talk to Lewis?
Improvement, and despite the fact that conflicts get resolved fairly quickly,
trying to get a shot
our
at Gabby
protagonist
here. I
Jimmy
don't know.
and Paul too a fair bit never stop violating professional or negligible arc
why can't I
professionally.
get a shot at Gabby? You know what I mean? Did I not talk about Gabby in my video? So does Gabby ever talk to frickin' Lewis? Where's Gabby? Gabby, I'm home. Oh, that's Summer. Summer's hilarious. Super funny actor, whoever played her. I don't know any of the actors' names, by the way, so it's not person. I just know Jason Segel and I keep forgetting the name of Paul. I know he's so famous. How Paul shrinking with, I always forget that guy's name. Harrison Ford. Yeah. From from that other movie. Okay. So why does Gabby never talk to Lewis? I'm not getting a lot of people in the chat help me out with this. Why does Gabby never talk to Lewis? Because I'm pretty sure Gabby never talks to Lewis. Okay? She was very close with Tia. We see at one point she like, after Lewis shows up at Jimmy's office, like he sees Gabby like an episode later or something in the office, and she's like, man, I'm just thinking about that Lewis showing up. And it's like, okay, you're never going to try to talk to him or like mention it really. So like, why does the show not think that Gabby would want to talk to Lewis? I wish I had like 500 Shrinking fans in the chat to help me out, because I might be wrong, but like, I'm pretty sure that they don't communicate, and I don't understand why we never even see Gabby considering to talk to Lewis. I'm fine with her never talking to Lewis. I just don't understand why it's taken for granted that she doesn't even mention it. That it's supposed to be so understandable that Alice wants to have this relationship with Lewis, and Brian wants to have this relationship with Lewis. And ultimately, Jimmy has some, friendship. It would stretch credulity for everyone to forgive him. Yeah, it'd be cool if Gabby met up with him and was like, "I don't forgive you." screw you, and I hope you have a fine life, but I don't care. You know what I mean? That's real forgiveness, by the way. I'm going to refill my beer really quick and maybe take a 1-minute break. How about everyone just kind of chat with each other and, you know, have a good time? We'll come back and you can tell me what you did over a break. Hello, how was your break? How's it going? What's good? People in the future, you just fast forwarded that. You know what I mean? You don't even care. You're like, I don't care. You could pee. You don't have to just fill up your beer. You could pee. You know what I mean? That's what people are thinking in the future, but not any of you who are here right now, who I do appreciate because you help egg along the stream insofar as it continues, which is the case. You know what I mean? Because we have 9 more pages of this Google Doc somehow. So someone's been elaborating a little bit too much. And I'm not going to say it was me, but I think... Oop, okay. How was everyone's break, though? That's a serious question. I'm not asking that to be polite. So... Thanks for... Yeah, so whatever. You know, we're here on the live stream. I forgave 8 people over the break. That's awesome. Wow. How did you do it? Yeah. So I guess I should ask before we go on, what did you think of the video? You know what I mean? Like, let me know what you think. Cause you know, I do my best, but I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm riffing. I'm trying to, you know, I'm editing my riffing. I'm trying to get a sort of train of thought going, but, I'm generally just kind of I'm trying to come up with something interesting to say about some sort of thing. So I think it was entertaining, and the editing is, wow, that was extensive. So I think that came out well. I mean, I was happy with. I think it's entertaining. So yeah, let me know what you thought. Okay, so what else do we have to say about shrinking? So yeah, does Gabby ever talk to Lewis? No one said anything about it. You know, everyone's silent, and I think that says a lot. It speaks volumes. Oh, I got to admit something. Oof, this is rough. You know, it's tough admitting you're wrong. It is tough admitting you're wrong, but when you get used to it, you know, it's no big deal. So I need to admit something to you.
In the lead role, with the legendary Jason Segel playing Jimmy. But if you think I'm starting off here with just superficial similarities between these shows, think again. Because there's also more profound connections, like the fact that Jimmy Laird, in true Saul Goodman fashion, sometimes wears a tracksuit.
Okay, he was not wearing a tracksuit. You know. Okay? I'll admit it. Yes, I'll admit it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Crucify me. I'll admit it. He was not actually wearing a tracksuit. And I knowingly lied about that. You know, and I think it's a good example of how YouTubers can lie to you, but also, you know, it was worth it for the bit, I think. So it does look like a tracksuit, but I'm pretty sure he had just like regular pants on. So, you know, wow, that is such a load off my chest. Oh my gosh. Wow. I feel so light. Okay, so that's fantastic. That feels so good to get that off my chest. I was really worried someone was going to call me out. No one commented on it. You know what I mean? People usually don't pick up on stuff like that because there's only so much time in the day and so on. But I think it was worth it for the bit. You know, it's a very small percentage of people that will know it's not a tracksuit, and I think it's still potentially technically similar enough to a tracksuit that it actually is okay calling it a tracksuit, because is a tracksuit, well, a tracksuit is inherently, top and bottom. So that sort of lacks one of the essential aspects of what it means to be a tracksuit. So that is enough to probably rule it out. But, you know, perception is sometimes close enough to reality, you know? So in the course of my video, you know, you can stipulate that he's wearing a tracksuit. So, okay, I'm not trying to defend it. It's not defendable. I'm sorry. And I wrote a song. It's called The Toxic Tracksuit Train. I'm so sorry I lied about the tracksuit that Jimmy wasn't wearing in season 1, episode 10 of Shrinking. Okay. Okay, so I think we can move on. Okay. So, speaking of things I did wrong, I understand that I only sort of did cite one article. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm going to look at research, and then I just looked at one article. In my defense, it was a systemic review, right? It was like 66 different articles. This is a sample. Yeah, but it was like a bunch of different... It was a survey of like 66 different articles. I believe, but so that's good. You know, that's what you want to do if you're reading one article. But you know, it's not like I'm writing a book about forgiveness. You know what I mean? I'm making a YouTube video, so you got to keep your expectations reasonable. I think that's an important lesson. I did read a second article. I think I found like 3, and then one of them was irrelevant. And then I read this other one too. So this one was all based in the workplace, you know. It was office-oriented forgiveness, which is just interesting. But I say this in the video, and I think it's true. You know, that's the stuff that gets funded. You know what I mean? So you just got to take what you can get. These researchers are not out here because they love employers. They're interested in the concept of forgiveness, and they're just using this as a pretext. It would be my assumption. You know what I mean? So you just want to, you want to take what you can get research-wise. You know, I cited where they're from and so on. Ontario, Portugal, Ontario. And, you know, so there was a second article, though, about forgiveness. And this one was specifically about perspectives on people of forgiveness-seeking behaviors from people that are being forgiven or that are being apologized at. To assess the victim's perspective on the potential usefulness of the 4 forgiveness-seeking dimensions: apologies, restorative action, relational caring behaviors, and diverting strategies. It's a 2021 survey that surveyed 450 people, so about their perspectives on forgiveness-seeking behaviors, and in their personal relationships, not their work relationships. And they found that apologies and restorative action are relational caring is doing things that quote, do not address the offense directly, but try to soothe and bolster the relationship, and thus are important to fully understanding action, but certainly better than, quote, diverting or defensive strategies, which are, quote, behaviors that do not show remorse and are more focused on saving the offender's face. The 3 categories of defensive strategies being, quote, excuses, justification, and avoidance. So I was thinking, it's not surprising that the dimensions of apologies, the dimensions are apologies, restorative action, and relational caring, and that they help out the forgiveness process. But sometimes also the diverting strategies help the forgiveness process. Defensive strategies too. The authors reference a study that, quote, found that excuses, justification, and avoidance were not related to worse relational outcomes, end quote. And another that, quote, found that children accept excuses and tend to forgive when there is low attribution of responsibility. So it's trying to find, do people who have been wronged prefer for like a ton of apology to be made, or like not a ton of apology to be made? Are people more likely to forgive when they are like, when they are given excuses, or when they are given justification, or when they are totally avoided and people just divert away from the actual wrongdoing? And they cited a study that found that dating couples use more minimizing strategies than married couples, indicating that it is less common in stable relationships. So in general, you want to not minimize your responsibility. They found, they're studying this. It's so funny. They get paid to study this, but it's like, you have to just check, you know what I mean? You never know. So they analyze whether diverting strategies could be detrimental in the long term because they focus on protecting the transgressor's self-image over the victim's repair and the relationship's restoration. So that was just another study. I just couldn't find a way to bring it up because the perspective of the people being being forgiven, like, I didn't know what to say. I mean, I guess that's Lewis, and he's like, oh, you know, I imagine he's like, wow, these people are really forgiving. You know what I mean? Hey, mate, I cannot stay on a work break. I hope everyone is safe and well. Free Palestine. Peace and love. Thank you, Nightmare. Good to see you. Free Palestine, of course. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking and horrible to see what Israel continues to do. I mean, just these last few days, continuing to drop explosive armaments on people and killing people in hospitals, killing journalists in hospitals, killing people, just killing people. It's so crazy. We've become desensitized to bombing. I'm working on a script about bombing. I don't know if it's actually going to be a video, but it's like, we don't even see bombing as like murder, and it's just murder. And then our country, the U.S., is just funding it. Barely any Democrats even speak out against it. Republicans don't speak at all, you know, out against anything, basically. But it's a nightmare. It's horrible that and I've been, you know, talking about this more because I'm Jewish, and my whole identity is being exploited by the state in a very cynical way to try to crack down on alleged so-called anti-Semitism in a blatantly charlatan infused fascistic nightmare. And it's really ridiculous because and Israel's just, you know, a part of it, obviously, but yeah, we fund it completely and we could totally stop it. So yeah, free Palestine for sure, but it's like our country should with one phone call could probably stop the genocide, frankly. And that's been the case for probably a while. And Joe Biden was guilty of this, of course. Along with most presidents are war criminals. Of course, obviously, that goes without saying. And that's the point of shrinking, I think. And it really brings us back to forgiveness. Where do you access your papers? Great question. So I just go to Google Scholar. You just pull up Google Scholar and you search stuff. And then you gotta look up a little thing called Sci-Hub. Sci-Hub is it's spelled different ways and hyphenated different ways and has different endings of the site, but I assume that's because it's so legitimate and, you know, that it just keeps upping its game in terms of its domain. So Sci-Hub is helpful for translating articles and legally, you know, obviously transmitting them to you, I assume. And so, yeah, with that Google Scholar Sci-Hub 1-2 punch, you can really access most, not all articles, but most. You put in the DOI number or whatever the DOI, and you get that in. Which is usually in the citation or just somewhere on the website. Sometimes you can just copy and paste the link. But and then to get my news, I go to Reuters, or you could go to AP and just avoid this. But you go to Reuters, and then you can copy and paste that into archive.is to keep informed about the news. You know, I assume that's totally on the up and up as well. Okay. So yeah, I just read a lot of research about apologies. I'm sure people really enjoyed that. They're like, thanks for doing that. So Jimmy, he gets a call from Summer. Yeah, that was interesting when he takes Summer to, he helps Summer when she's stealing stuff from the store. It was really reminiscent of Better Call Saul with, Kim and Kim's mom. You know what I mean? Like in the flashback, like she's stealing from the store and her authority figure has to show up and like rescue her. And like here, that was such an amazing homage to Better Call Saul when Shrinking did that, you know? Yeah, and in regards to the forgiveness thing, so this is interesting because this takes place, he's like, like Alice is so mad at him because he won't talk to Lewis. It just makes no sense. But like he won't talk to Lewis, so Alice is so mad at him, and then he like helps Summer get away with stealing and get away without being charged with a crime and so on. And then this is sort of in regards to that article, it's sort of like relational caring. It's like doing this act, it's indirectly to Alice, but she appreciates it. She says like, oh, that was cool and so on. But yeah, she doesn't have very responsible parents, and so Jimmy gets to sort of play this role with her that like Liz has played with Alice, his daughter. So I guess that's interesting, but not really, obviously not really, actually, now that I say that. He hasn't really taken on that much of a positive role with Summer. He just did that one thing, but that still was very Better Call Saul core. How does he know when Donnie's physical therapy appointment is? When he shows up to Donnie's physical therapy appointment, yeah, like how does he know? How does he know?
He follows it by showing up at the...
Like, how does he know? Am I like overthinking it by being like, how does he know? Is that thinking too hard about a show? Like, in what world does he know from that phone call with Grace when Donnie's physical therapy appointment is, and where? What? Is there one place in Pasadena that does physical therapy? What? And like he's just showing up around the clock? Like what's going on here? Okay, so chat is blowing up to this. Everyone's going absolutely nuts saying, yeah, that's a good point. Physical therapy appointments should be covered under HIPAA. And yeah, they are. Chat. In season 1, episode 1, Jimmy calls Sean his friend when they go to the MMA gym. To the gym coach, he calls Sean, oh, my friend. It's his client. For those who are fans of the show will know. Yeah, he is really good at stalking his clients. You think he's going to just become a detective in season 3? What's going to happen in season 3? I saw the news drop just the other day. Michael J. Fox is going to be in season 3. Did y'all see that? Y'all Shrinking fans see that? Michael J. Fox famously has Parkinson's. So is he going to be playing himself with Parkinson's? Like, it can't be a coincidence, obviously, that they chose a famous actor with Parkinson's, right? So he's going to be someone that Paul meets at some sort of like Parkinson's group or something, or it must be related, right? That can't be extraneous information, right? So So Michael J. Fox will be in it, and that's nice, I guess. Okay, so the timeline of the show was confusing to me. In season 1, episode 2, the guidance counselor asks, okay, check this out. The guidance counselor asks if Alice is going to take any AP classes next year. But she's a senior. Like, it just seems really weird. Like, I feel like the show just, I don't want to be like pointing out plot holes, but it's kind of fun. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's kind of fun to see where
Versus
something can have like silly, stupid plot holes, because it's kind of funny. And I think Alice was a senior, and that was pretty well established. You know? So hold on, I'm just trying to find a shot. I should have had this all time-stamped. Okay, here she is. Okay, so Alice, she and Brian go to Lewis's apartment, and Lewis mentions that Brian told him Alice was applying to colleges. So she's definitely a senior. And also in the season 2, episode 8 flashback, the like 12-minute flashback that starts that episode, Liz tells Tia she could recommend a PSAT tutor. And if Tia died around a year ago, it would make sense she took the SAT junior year, and she's now in the senior year. So she's a senior. But then in season 1, episode 2, the guidance counselor, like in that scene, I think with Jimmy and Liz, asks if Alice is going to take any AP classes next year. So I guess ding, you know what I mean? Okay. Gabby tells Sean in season 1, episode 4 that it's in the office. Gabby tells Sean, she shouldn't be talking to Sean really, by the way, but she like runs by him in the office. I'm just trying to, she runs by Sean. And she tells him that she referred him to Jimmy because she felt like they'd be a good fit because they could, quote, help each other out. Which is bizarre because, you know what I mean? Very weird. A therapist tells you, a client, I referred you to my colleague because I thought you two could help each other out. But yeah, she's totally complicit. Gabby's character, very complicit. And in season 2, episode 8, when Sean is injured and using crutches, Paul needs a ride to his neurologist, and Gabby has a client that she has to meet with. So when Sean says he can't drive Paul due to being on crutches, Gabby still says he'd love to, quote, to Paul about Sean, and Sean drives Paul to his neurologist appointment, who he then dates. So again, a reward the show grants Paul, actually, a good outcome of his client being put in a very weird situation by him and also Gabby. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on there, y'all? I know I'm overthinking it. I know. But like, how could, like, that's a kind of a normal reaction to have. Like, why are y'all pressuring your client to drive you when he's on crutches? Oh my gosh. And like, this is just so weird, and I won't get over it. But at one point when Jimmy talks with Connor, like the neighbor, Liz's son, about like Connor having sex with Alice, it's so bizarre. Like, you know. Oh yeah, this is right after when he talks to Liz about it. Connor like enlists Jimmy's help to talk to her. It's very, very unrealistic to see like this protagonist who's a therapist talking with his neighbor's son about the young guy like hooking up with his daughter. Like, no neighbor's son would ever want to talk to you about that. Like, what the hell? Oh, it's so unrealistic. I think it just rubbed me the wrong way. Okay. So Gabby hooks up with Jimmy at the end of the 6th episode after helping him sober up after the incident of him puking at the piano at Brian's engagement party. And it comes directly after Alice tries to kiss Sean. So it's played as like this parallel, like Alice and Sean and Jimmy and Gabby. And as if that makes it like interesting, good timing or makes sense in some way. Though it's also it's aligned with like Gabby finding a photo of Tia smiling at Jimmy and like showing it to Jimmy to make him feel better because he could only remember like moments of Tia being upset with him towards the end there, and that was really upsetting obviously for him. So she found a photo of her 2 weeks before her death and showed it to him, and it led to them hooking up, which I was like, what? Why does that lead to you hooking up? What? Okay. And then in like a few episodes later, they sit Alice down and apologize for hooking up. It's just like, what? What is going on? Why are you treating, like, what's going on? Like, yes, people should talk about things, but like, it's a little bit much, I think. And I don't know. It's a really weird show. I was just going to call my video like Shrinking is a Weird Therapy Show, but then I decided I would use the I watched sort of motif as a thing, you know. So what do you think? So I talked at one point about Paul, this scene where Paul's fighting with
coworker's daughter.
Meg, his daughter. It's just this brief like rise in tension. So I talked about it because he's equivocal about whether Alice is his patient or his coworker's daughter. It's also a good example of a problem with the ambiguous lack of professionalism and boundaries in Paul's relationship with Alice, because she shows up to his house. It's his, quote, fortress of solitude, right? But still, he's established the type of relationship with her where she feels like, yeah, why can't I just show up? So she shows up unannounced and wanting to talk with him about stuff going on in her life with Sean, and gets turned away because he's created the type of environment where she logically would feel like, oh, maybe I can just show up to his house because he's so unprofessional. So, yeah, I also forgot to mention about Alice and Paul where she walks away from him. Oh, yeah. This.
Women, don't you, Paul?
Luckily, he's always very professional about it.
Got away with women, don't you, Paul?
He says that about the 17-year-old girl walking away from him who's his client. It's not just weird to call her a woman, it's also weird to use that euphemism for your client. Got away with women, like, weird, dude. Just weird. But anyways, in this scene, she's venting and he's like, it's not all about you. That's why she walks away. He goes, young people, you know, think they're the only one with problems. She's like, isn't this my therapy? And he's like, oh, yeah. I mean, so, yeah. Just, I guess I don't know what I'm saying because it's fine for a show to show that, but it's like, that's a bigger deal than the show kind of reckons with, I guess. That sort of like fundamental issue that would lead to that type of behavior gets resolved too easily for what it seems like, I guess, is how it seems. So the show is so rushed, you know what I mean? I talk about that, but like it'll try to justify it, like Brian and Charlie's wedding is rushed because that's when they can get time off work. So the show will be like, oh, you know, I have to come up with a reason for things moving so quickly.
More unethical than Jimmy's.
Yeah. It's a long video, you know. Oh, here we go.
Breaking up, she'd be to take of the building on his dad could go on parents with him and it's worth. So it's not a Screen Rant article. In that, he's excited about doing
As everyone.
true. Every character is best, then breaks up, is very awkward, becomes friends again, learns how to process his grief in a healthy way, and so on. Paul gets Parkinson help, and he is her husband up. She becomes take care of. She was a great relationship about kids, and then decides to raise a child with his husband Charlie.
Okay, whatever. I don't know. It's hard to find clips. There we go. There's one of their wedding. Imagine that was showing when I was talking about their wedding. You know. So cool. So what else? Yeah, I made that point about comparing to the Good Samaritan from Better Call Saul, where it's like the family of the Good Samaritan caring about Mike's sort of mental health, like the sense of this family caring about Lewis's mental health. It's just sort of a strange construction in a sense. The biggest difference would be that Mike is continuing to do harm, obviously, whereas Lewis is not. So it's obviously very different but still it would be very bizarre to care about the well-being of someone who like unintentionally killed your loved one. Like you just, I don't, it's not the most relatable impulse. So that would be a nice twist in Better Call Saul if Mike was like depressed about what he was doing. So if they make another season, maybe when Vince is like 80, he'll be like, yeah, let's do, more. You can dream. Okay. How we doing? How's chat? People kind of chilling. So in season 1, episode 9, when it happens to be the week of Tia's birthday, which Jimmy tells to one of his clients, Jimmy's client Steven is waiting for him at the office. And at the time of his appointment, Jimmy says, let's go out and drive, actually, right? So they drive in his, they do this montage and they drive. Jimmy with his car, blah, 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 with his client Steven. And then they go and scatter the client's mom's ashes. And they're in Jimmy's car. But it doesn't make any sense how the guy has his mom's ashes, because he clearly doesn't have his mom's ashes when the urn or whatever, when he's at the office. But then, like when he gets out of Jimmy's car and Jimmy's like, hey, we should go for a drive. You know what I mean? So he shows up to his therapist's office without his mom's ashes. And his therapist is like, yo, let's go for a drive and scatter your mom's ashes. And like the ashes just show up. So it's a little bizarre. And I don't know whose idea it was to scatter the ashes at the stadium. The guy likes sports and so on. They get chased away by security, so it kind of messes with the moment. Like, it makes for a good montage, but it's like, that was the moment of the guy scattering his mom's ashes. and they just got scared away by security because you chose to do this in a very haphazard way. You know what I mean? I know how to pronounce that word now. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention and definitely would have about everything going well. I'm reading my own text. And unethical behavior having great and cool consequences. Oh yeah. So regarding Brian and Charlie's wedding, it's so there's this whole like mini arc of
child with his husband Charlie. Sean proned about relationship with Dick, then decides to raise a child with his husband. He gets married.
So there's this whole subplot about like Jimmy's going to like be the officiant at the wedding, and then Brian like decides that he doesn't want him to be, and then it's like this like pointless little mini arc where you just know he's eventually gonna relent because everything goes fine. And it's really stupid and pointless because like Jimmy doesn't deserve to be like, he puked on the piano when he like was given responsibility at the engagement party. And it's like, I mean, it's weird to be watching a show and the show seems to be like rewarding Jimmy and like acting like it's good that Jimmy like gets trusted again. Jimmy acts all wronged and Brian acts all sorry as if there's something wrong with him deciding to not let a particular friend officiate his wedding. It's like, what's going on? Brian just changes his mind, you know. It was really cool him working up his himself to talk to Jimmy and be like, I'm sorry, man. I don't think you could be the officiant, but he just gives in, and then we're supposed to be happy when Jimmy's officiating the wedding. In season 1, episode 9, someone says, quote, I forgave myself. I went on a whole ass journey. It took 2.5 minutes. Yeah, that's a good summary of the show. That's why I put that there. Yeah, the conflict between Paul and Meg did seem kind of confusing to me. And sometimes kind of contrived. Like, he invites her on short notice to meet in Vegas for his extremely unlikely, by the way, Career Achievement Award from the APA, which is like a very special award. It makes sense for Meg to be a little bit flustered. Like, why are you inviting me on short notice? But it makes no sense, despite her experience of pain with Paul, for her to be so mad at him. Like, he was inviting her to see him in another state. This is not in this scene that I'm showing. I just don't have a clip of it. There's a weird periodic, like, lack of empathy in this show where, like, the characters just, like, sometimes just totally lack empathy. And there's brief conflict that's really easily resolved. Like, Sean starts a business with investment money from Liz, and then saying to Liz, oh, the best part is you don't have to be involved in it at all. Bye. Like, that's so unrealistic. Why would he say that to Liz? Like, what? It's weird timing that season 1, episode 9 closes with the emotional moment of Alice realizing she'd forgotten Tia's birthday. And being sort of inconsolable when Jimmy tries to be supportive. And then season 1, episode 10, the last episode of the first season, opens with Alice getting upset with Jimmy because Jimmy's found the presumably next morning to get rid of... Jimmy's decided the next morning to get rid of memories of Tia and stop wearing his wedding ring. Like, it's just odd timing. Like, he, like, gets rid of, like, memories of Tia, and then, like, just later in the episode, it's like, oh, I'll bring them back. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, what? So we are shrinking it up right now. Let's keep shrinking. Okay, I have an example of the sappy music being a problem. Over Jimmy's inappropriate speech when when he's officiating Brian and Charlie's wedding. Yeah, I see someone in the chat talking about that too. He makes like half of it about Tia, and there's sappy music playing over it. So you're like, it'd be really, really good if it was just played. Like, I think this show should be like a different tone, like almost like a horror. Like there should be like totally different music. It's like a very good display of like decadent, completely unethical behavior. And like it could just be played like a little bit differently, and then the music be totally different, and I think it would be a lot better. By the way, I wanted to get into like the mental health stuff more, like some of the things they talk about. The thing Jimmy calls his boop idea. I have a link here. Oh. So Jimmy, this whole boop thing. It's they call it pattern interruption. So they call it pattern interruption. And so the thing about that is, so he calls it the boop after Grace, his client, does a boop and critically injures Donnie in pattern interruption, which Jimmy defends to Paul, his mentor, as, quote, an established neurolinguistic strategy. But the thing is, y'all, and no hate to people who are into neurolinguistic programming, but it's actually not really as evidence supported as I think things like cognitive behavioral therapy are. That's my understanding, I think. And it doesn't require the same degree of education or licensure as my understanding. And it's probably got some validity, but in my opinion, from what I've seen, it seems to overstate certain benefits of certain things. Neurolinguistic programming. And you can get trained in NLP as a licensed mental health professional or as an unlicensed without any schooling or other training, earning, quote, practitioner or, quote, master practitioner certifications and so on. That's my understanding. It's called, quote, pseudoscientific by Wikipedia, I think. A 2012 systematic review found insufficient evidence that neurolinguistic programming, this thing Jimmy cites, is effective. There is little evidence that NLP interventions improve health-related outcomes. But, you know, there's different research that gets different things. A 2015 meta-analysis found it at least somewhat effective. They said it's grounded in theoretical frameworks. Can hold its ground in comparison with other psychotherapeutic methods. I just spent, 10 or so minutes referencing it. It's definitely not the type of thing that you want your therapist to be like into. It's a nice bonus, but it's not like the thing I would seek out, in my opinion. Neurolinguistic programming, I don't buy it. Not fully, I don't buy it, no. I'm open-minded, though. I'll listen to anything. But from the evidence I've seen, it uses bases of other sort of evidence-based things and then kind of riffs on it in a way that's probably not useful as a massive thing. Anyways, it's a little odd that Jimmy's into it. And then, okay, well, we saw what the boop did. So he references NLP in the show. It's like, okay, did Phil Stutz tell you about that one? Like, what the heck? So I'm just telling you all my notes. I got a lot more to share. I hope you're okay with that, I guess. So In season 2, episode 2, Gabby is on a hike with Liz and Brian. And I don't have clips for everything. I should have like had an image for everything, but that would have taken like 2 hours. You know what I mean? I don't need to do that. You all don't pay me enough for that. Oh, nice. I found a clip of Gabby. Gabby's on a hike with Liz and Brian and says to Liz that she can hold her pee for 48 hours, okay? But a few episodes prior, and I know this is ridiculous to call this out, okay? But listen, a few episodes prior, she pushed into Paul's house because she had to pee because she drinks so much water all the time. That's like the main thing about Gabby. She drinks a bunch of water. That's why she saw Julie over at Paul's and blah, blah, blah. And she drinks a bunch of water. So how could she hold her pee for 48 hours? Is this before her drinking water era? You know what I mean? Tell me that. Make it make sense. Anyways, that's probably not the strongest point. It's kind of crazy that Jimmy never mentioned to Brian he was sleeping with Gabby. I don't really get it. It sort of seems contrived. I don't see why he cared about mentioning to Brian that he was sleeping with Gabby. I guess because he felt... Okay, I shouldn't say that. He felt guilty. That totally makes sense. I'm sorry. I was sort of saying that. I was thinking about something else while I was saying that. But when I heard what I was saying, I was like, I got to tune into that. That's not correct. It does make total sense, actually, that he would not want Brian to know because he's doing something kind of weird, hooking up with his late wife's close friend and his coworker. It, like, doesn't make sense, and everyone knows it. And so... And they're like, the moment is spawned by her showing him a photo of Tia smiling at him. It makes no sense. So yeah, he feels super guilty, and he should. So that does make sense. What doesn't make sense is, this was what I meant to say. I got tangled up. What doesn't make sense is how much Brian is offended at not having been told. That is super contrived. It's like, Brian... have some understanding that your friend was a little bit ashamed. You know, Brian, be a little bit understanding. Like, but there's just these rolling crises where everything always has to spawn another crisis. Well, it resolves. I forgot to say... when I said how Alice should be talking to a therapist rather than talking to Lewis, when she does tell Paul before this that she went to Lewis's house to scope it out before meeting him, Paul gets worked up and says, "That's what I'm here for. I'm not saying you can't talk to him someday." And then he demands that she promise him she won't see Lewis, which is not really ethical. Like, you don't demand your clients promise you something. That's not something you do as a therapist. Stanley Cups are unwieldy, I will say. I'm not sponsored. And it's also clearly ineffective to make someone promise something to you. Like, okay. I need to tell you something. This is a big deal. So I mentioned how Jeff Daniels is going to be in the show. You know? So... my question is, how is Jeff Daniels... So, as Jason Segel's father... Let me ask you a question, though. How is that going to work? Because in season 3, you know, there's... Okay, they're going to have his father. In this scene... I believe right here, Jimmy says, my dad, Brian's like, I'll help you if you give me your sweater or something. You know what I mean? It's like some stupid thing. And Jimmy goes, my dad gave me this sweater. And then Brian goes, because he realized how ugly it was. And Jimmy goes, because he died. And Brian goes, no, he didn't. And then Jimmy gives a confused look. Can someone make it make sense? They literally, Jimmy himself says his dad is dead. How are they going to have Jeff Daniels play his dad? Yeah, Brian slaps Jimmy because he laughs and says they wouldn't be friends if they met now. That was kind of weird. I don't know what else to say about that. Liz selling her share of the truck to Sean's dad without talking to him first without talking to Sean first, after a brief chat with Gabby about psychological egoism, which Gabby's definition of it is so weird. It's bizarre. You gotta just find out what's in your self-interest, I guess. I feel like psychological egoism, isn't that the idea that, like, you're doing things for yourself even when they seem altruistic? Is that not what it is? The theory all human actions are ultimately motivated by self-interest. Yeah. Even those that appear to be altruistic suggest that individuals, maximize their own happiness, well-being, or welfare. I just finished reading Scanlon's What We Owe to Each Other, which is an account of a philosophical account of contractualism, which is an alternative to utilitarianism, where what's right and wrong is based on whether the reasons for the actions could be justified to people who are reasonably motivated to find common morality, common reasons for action, which I think is I loved it. It was a great read, frankly. But half of it was, philosophical technicalities, but you gotta, it's gotta do that. So let me just give an example of the pace of the show, okay? So, Shrinking. So season 2, episode 3 has Alice meet with Lewis for the first time and blow up at him at the coffee shop around 25 minutes in. And then Sean finds out Liz sold his stake of the business to Sean's dad. Grace hears her friends' and sister's character witness statements and decides to finally move away from Donnie with her sister. Paul and Julie go to find him a new doctor, showing him accepting and allowing Julie to be his partner in a healthy way. Jimmy shows up at Brian and Charlie's and joins them for dinner as a surprise to bond with Brian after their protracted fight. And then around 32 minutes in, we come back to Alice, who's really upset and slamming stuff around, and it's a little jarring because it's been 7 minutes where we've seen one fight and 3 reconciliations, basically. One step in the unpleasant direction, and then in one plot line, and then 3 steps in the pleasant direction in 3 other plot lines. And now we're back to Alice, and it's just like strangely paced. And this is when she hooks up with Connor. So this plot line is taking a step in the unpleasant direction. There's going to be something that has to be resolved, certainly. And it's just scene after scene of significant moments in interpersonal relationships. Negative, positive, 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 negative. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's a lot. So, so what else? Yeah, I don't really have much else to say, honestly. This is pretty much most of it. Yeah, the end of that long time, that long day Jimmy and Dan had together. And Jimmy goes, "You want a hug?" You know? I don't know where that is. Forget where that. No, I have some of the minutes down in my mind, but you know, just kind of imagine. Not in the Lewis section, obviously. Oh, here we go. No, that's the Wally segment. Anyways, Jimmy says to his client, Dan, "Do you want a hug?" And Dan's like, "Heck no," which is super funny. I have never hugged a client. I just wanted to say, it's not really normally something. It's possible for a therapist to hug a client in a way that's appropriate. I've never done it. I don't really know. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it, really. So you could, I guess, if you somehow have reason to believe it will be appropriate and not just cross a boundary that makes them feel like it's a little bit potentially unprofessional. But it's just not like a black and white, like you're a bad therapist if you do it, but it's definitely like a, whoa, like he's still doing stuff like this. Damn, you know. His client obviously doesn't want a hug. Like, what? You just took your client with you, like, around all day. Like, what? So, episode 8 of the second season, right? Starts with a 12-minute flashback, which is a really bold choice. I like that. It's right after Jimmy sees Alice, Brian, and Lewis out at dinner. And then the first 2 minutes of this flashback, let's see if we can get a good clip up here.
This series.
The first few minutes, 2 minutes of this flashback are Lewis and Sarah having a cute time at the train station and so on. And then after a few minutes, I can't tell if it's a joke, but Sarah says she got rid of his stuff when she moves in with him, when they move in together. Like, maybe it's a joke. It might just totally be a joke. But if it's not a joke, like, why didn't she get rid of his stuff? And she's drinking a beer and he's not when they're at, their new apartment. He holds her back from taking down his Miscongeniality poster, which then later Jimmy points out when he comes to the apartment towards the end of the episode. And it seems like, it sort of seems like it's being played that Sarah's like the bad influence or something. Like, it just sort of seems like, she's drinking, and so... But no, not in the critical moment, at least. The show makes sure that Lewis, for the drunk driving, is fully responsible. And Sarah suggests a lift when they've had a few drinks out at the restaurant with their friends. And Lewis insists on driving for basically no reason. He says, quote, "No, I got work early. We're like a mile away," which makes no sense. How long does it take to wait for a lift? You know what I mean? And being a mile away, like, that's great for a lift. That's like $5. Though Sarah is a bad influence in that she has them steal the salt and pepper shakers or something. She goes, he goes, "I really love you, and she goes, "You're so getting laid tonight." Which is funny, but, again, I'm just like, it's interesting analyzing, like, is the show trying to discharge responsibility onto her? Not really. It's just that he has a complicated relationship with her where she and him break up all based around this. Like here, my next note is about it. Lewis says, she says he could get a year of prison time, but it could be 10 months with good behavior, which, by the way, I mean, I'm all for like minimizing people's time in prison when they're not a violent person, but or like not a violent person when they're not at risk of harming others immediately. But you know, that's a pretty good sentence. Like, damn, like, did he have Saul Goodman? You know what I mean? Like, what? Anyways, then he breaks up with Sarah because, quote, I made the worst mistake of my life, and every time I look at you, that's what I'm going to see. It's like, okay. I get that. And then the flashback goes on to Jimmy and Alice, and it's so crushing. She's like, Dad, I need you. And he's like, I can't. It's like super crushing. Which is so meaningful. But it's interspersed with Lewis and Sarah, who, like, I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like, I get that they have significance, but I don't really know them. I don't really care about them. This is kind of the first I'm seeing of them. I don't really... And then, like, why is that a parallel with Jimmy and Alice? And, like, why is it being played as if it has equal weight? I don't really feel deep feelings for Lewis at this point, randomly deciding to break up with Sarah because she wants to stay with her parents briefly instead of staying at the place they just moved in together when he moves off to prison. It's actually really reasonable for her to be like, yo, we just moved into this place, and I'm super rattled about us just being in the car together when we killed someone, essentially. I mean, it was him driving, but she was there. So she's like traumatized. She's like, I'm going to go stay with my parents. And he's like, I think we need to break up. Like, okay. It just doesn't, look, I'm not trying to criticize Lewis as an institution. It just doesn't really have weight to it because it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion. So... Sean has his military friend stay in the apartment he's staying in and start working at the food truck, I think, later. I don't know if I have a good image for that. So it's like he sort of carries on like he was crashing on someone's couch and now someone's crashing on his couch. His military friend stays in the apartment he's staying in. And he works at the food truck. So, you know, interesting. I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say about that. Sean suggesting... I talked about this at the end. Sean suggesting Gabby's sister Courtney joins the military. By the way, I didn't name Courtney in the video. I'm sorry about that, Courtney. It's his version of Alice being friends with Lewis. He's like, he's got to forgive the U.S. military so much. Just like Alice, for whatever reason, needs to like be friends with Lewis. That's so important to her. And like, Sean needs to recommend joining the military when he's like not even a few years away from being traumatized by his experience in the military. Like, the show seems to think that growth means you have to not just move on and not, like, hate the thing that hurt you, but you need to, like, love the thing that hurt you. I don't know. I'm not trying to, like, overthink it, but it's like, what's going on? Why does Sean recommend that? Chat is blowing up about this right now. If you're not looking at the chat, just trust me. Gabby's a dungeon master? They reveal at one point. That's a little bit surprising. But I mean, she's got it. I think she's got it going on. She could master a dungeon. I'd like to see more of that. You know what I mean? Oh my my god, that scene with Jimmy and Sophie, which I guess she's gonna be his love interest. They're just gonna have a love interest, right? I mean, they're obviously just gonna do a love interest thing in season 3, right? I'm probably never gonna do a video on the 3rd season, frankly. It's like, it's gotta be super out there for me to make a video about it. This is like my shrinking swan song. So but I am excited for season 3 to drop, and then for people to find my video. They'll probably be annoyed that I didn't make it about season 3. I'm sorry. I couldn't have. Anyways, so I guess they're gonna have a relationship. It feels so forced. You know, I don't look forward to it, you know. Oh, they're gonna have a will they, won't they? You know, oh my gosh. I forgot to mention there's sort of a parallel, another parallel with Better Call Saul. I don't think I mentioned enough. Gabby, so remember how in Better Call Saul, Jimmy repeats Mike's advice about the bad choice road? He repeats it to Kim and he just butchers the advice. And it shows how he didn't really understand how you have to be accountable for your actions, and he just took it as like, there are good choices and bad choices, you know? There's a similar thing in Shrinking. In the season 2 finale, repeating the advice about bravery from Gabby's mom's care worker, Aaliyah, Liz repeats it. Liz repeats Aaliyah's advice about bravery. Liz repeats it to Jimmy, and it's like this homage to Better Call Saul, another one. So, yeah, at this one point, there's this quote about Lewis where I think I showed it, but I took out the part where I commented on it, because for whatever reason. But Jimmy's talking to Alice, and he says, he's taking, you know, it's in the part where he's like saying how Lewis was this symbol of him, like, and you know, of Tia's death and his, you know, failure to be a good father in that time and so on. And he says, quote, when Lewis came back into our lives, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, that's just kind of a weird way to phrase it. I didn't want to nitpick, but like, came back into your lives. Like, he wasn't really in your life before. I mean, it's just a weird way to say it, but okay. Came back into your lives. Okay, I'm nitpicking. I did not realize the first time through that Ray is at the Thanksgiving together. The client Ray. Paul's client Ray is invited to the Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. Paul's ex-client Ray is invited to the Thanksgiving get-together. Okay, let's talk a little Lewis briefly before we get out of here. Yeah, and then one more thing after this. But, yeah, so the whole thing where Lewis's friend cancels Lewis coming to Thanksgiving because he finds out that Lewis had this accident with Tia and killed someone with his car through his negligence. And so his friend says, I told some of my friends that you were coming, and you never told me you got drunk and murdered someone. It's like, okay. Like, do you normally Google people that are coming to your Thanksgiving? Like, what? And anyways, Lewis's friend has seen Alice come in multiple times, but apparently never asked his coworker and friend, hey, who's that person who you keep talking to? Or Lewis has just lied about who Alice was. No, it's just a 17-year-old I'm friends with. So, how is everyone doing? How's the chat doing? Are we feeling good? Are we feeling great? What's your kind of status feeling wise? Great, good to know. And so I wanted to share with you my last point here. That was just stalling. That's what we in the streaming industry called stalling. So this is so you know, we like to talk recasts. So this is Grace with her sister when she texts her therapist, which is super weird that he's established, not weird of her, weird of him, that he's established a relationship with his client where his client justifiably thinks it's normal to text him a photo of herself with her sister. But I'm sorry, but this is a different sister, correct? I mean, I'm not trying to, or am I wrong? Like the nose is different, the face is different, the hair is obviously different, but you know. So anyways, just a nice recast. I just wanted to talk recasts. You know, people talk recasts. Well, how are we feeling, everyone? I think that's about does it. You know what I mean? Thank you so much for coming out and watching this live stream. This was my last will and testament to shrinking. And now I can move on with my life. Do you know how good that feels? To be free? You know what I mean? To actually be free for once? To not have to talk about shrinking? So I have some other YouTube stuff I'll work on. It's going to be slow. But, you know, maybe I'll put out, I mentioned some smaller stuff. Maybe something I'll just put out, you know, a smaller thing. I might lower my standards a little bit, you know, so that would be good, right? Just kind of lower the standards, just kind of put stuff out sometimes. So it doesn't all have to be a 2-hour tightly edited video essay, you know, so. Someone in the chat says I'm dehydrated. Well, let's drink some water. You know what I mean? You should get a Stanley Cup if you need it. Hopefully everyone watching took that opportunity to drink some water. So I put my podcast in the pinned comment. I'll put that in the description. Check that out. I do that weekly. Every third week is public on that channel, and then every other week is just for the channel supporters on YouTube membership and Patreon. But yeah, I appreciate you all coming out and joining me on this live stream. Thank you so much for participating. If you did, and if you just listened, you know, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I'll see you sometime soon. I'll be doing a podcast this Sunday, but that'll be just for the private vibes for the channel supporters. And then I'll be back public the week after by my calculations. And yeah, so hang in there and keep on keeping on. And thank you so much for, you know, feel free to comment about the show. You know, feel free to be like, I disagree or I agree, you know, or anything in between. So, okay. Bye.